April of 1956, Cecilia got a telephone call from her friend Frank Hurd in Columbus, who said he wanted to give us a wedding gift.
I was getting ready to go in the Army, and I wanted the dog to have a good home.
He called and said, "Would you like to have a bulldog puppy?" And I said to Sonny, "You know, why not? We lived in an apartment that was no bigger than a nickel."
And I said, "My God, we can't afford to feed ourselves, let alone a bulldog," but we couldn't turn it down either.
Well, he was a darling little thing. He just kept growing. He was kind of tall.
He was given the name Uga by a law school friend of Sonny Seiler's, and it was Billy Young who suggested Uga.
And I said, "Uga?" He said, "You know, an acronym for University of Georgia." I said, "Oh, yeah." Sounded good to me.
A lot of people mispronounce it. They pronounce it Uga, but it's pronounced Uga, as in Mugga.
At the time, he looked more like a boxer. He was real leggy. He was very young. He hadn't filled out yet. He didn't look like the prototype bulldog that you picture. And I wondered what in the hell we'd done. You know, it wasn't the kind of bulldog I thought it was going to be. But by September, the dog filled out. And he really looked like a hood ornament off of a Mack truck. The first home football game, we took him over to the Sigma Chi house to a warm-up party, just for a hoot.
I went to Penny's and I found a child size 12 t-shirt. And we cut out a G and glued it on, and then I put elastic in the border of the sleeves and on the bottom, and oh, I just thought it was great looking.
We never dreamed of taking him to the game, didn't contemplate that when we went over there, but everybody liked him so much when it came time to go to the game, they said, "Let's take him to the game." And so we took him to the game. Not on the field, we took him up in the stands, and he created a lot of attention up there, and some sports writers saw him, and some pictures later appeared in the papers of this Georgia Bulldog.
And I think from the get-go, Sonny Seiler had in his mind that someday this might be the mascot. It was white, he just filled the bill. And you know, looking back on it, he really wasn't that pretty.
In the fall of my freshman year, on Saturday afternoons, they started dressing me up and taking me to this party in a big field. All that noise. I'd never heard anything like that in my life. At first, I was so scared I thought I'd done something bad. Something really bad. Worse than anything I'd ever done on the carpeting. All these people were looking at us. They were smiling, cheering, and they liked us. My daddy, he just stuck out his chest and marched down that field. So I did too. No one was prouder than we were.
We had some brindle bulldogs precede the Ugas, one known as Butch. And Butch was succeeded by another brindle bulldog, Mike, owned by C.L. Fain of Atlanta. But he died, and Coach Butts asked me to get a new mascot.
I was working in the afternoons in the athletic office, and I would run the ticket window in the afternoons and sell tickets to the football games. This was in Old Stagman Hall, and Dan McGill's office was right upstairs.
And I had known Sonny when he was on the swimming team. Coach Butts asked me, I was his jack of all trades in the athletic department. So I went out and looked at the puppy in the apartment, and he looked fine to me, nice specimen, and found out that he was the grandson of our Rose Bowl team mascot. I told Coach Butts about the puppy, that he was the grandson of the Rose Bowl mascot, to sign him up.
I went in, and Virginia Whitehead handed me a note that said, "Coach Butts would like to talk to you." And the first thing that hit my mind is, what have I done to be fired? But I went up to Coach Butts' office immediately, and he said, "Sonny, Dan tells me you've got mighty fine bulldog that would make a good mascot. We don't have one, and we need some excitement. What do you say to us using him as a mascot? And I was honored.
Dan is the key to all of this, because Dan loved the dog so much that he couldn't wait to expose the dog.
One way I found out we could get a picture of the bulldog in the paper was to have a pretty girl with the dog. We'd kill two birds with one stone. She'd be a pretty cheerleader from such and such a town. And then I'd put them on the cover of our football brochure with the bulldog.
When I was a cheerleader, he was in charge of a lot of the publicity, and when the cheerleaders would have to have their pictures made. So we did often pose with the Bulldogs.
Anything for Georgia, Dan appreciated. He wanted pictures of the dog like he wanted pictures of the beauty queens. He was big on beauty queens.
But hey, you didn't hear me complaining about it. You know Uga likes the ladies.
The end of my third year in law school, when I was about to be graduated, I was going to have to go in the Army because of my ROTC commitment. Cecilia had already obtained a job in Savannah. Swan had come along, our oldest daughter. We had her. And I remembered my commitment to Coach Butts, and so I went to see him, and I told him, I said, Coach, I don't take that commitment lightly, and we've enjoyed doing it, and I want to continue doing it. But this dog has become a very intricate part of my family, and he and my little girl are growing up together, and I would like to propose that you let us keep Uga, and I will have him at every football game from now on. And I held my breath, and Coach Butts, who could be a hoot in those days, he just smiled. He said, sounds like a good deal to me, Sonny.